Hey, welcome all you listeners to the Life Shot podcast. I got Tim van der Vliet with us. He's a breathing expert and coach and actually we'll find out today what you do, Tim. And it's going to be great to find out about your passions and what you do. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Clint. It's very nice.
Very good. I met you through Liz Marsland, and she's been a great guest of mine on 2 occasions. So how do you know Liz, by the way?
Liz was in my training once, a weekend training where I was teaching the Wim Hof method. So that's about breathing, mindset, and taking ice bath. And after that, she introduced me to a CrossFit club within London where I'm teaching now. Well, once your borders are open again. So she's helped me a lot, and I just instantly clicked with her. She's an amazing woman, and we have the same mindset, So yeah, she's amazing.
For sure. How did you get into the Wim Hof thing? I know Wim's been around in the Netherlands for a long time. Have you known about him for a long time, or was it something more recent since his upswing in popularity?
I met him before he became really popular. Basically, I published a book once, I believe it's 10 years ago, and around 6-7 years ago, I had to do a talk in Brighton. And Wim too, and we were in the same hotel, and we had this busy lifestyle, traveling, and always around people. And then sometimes you have a full day where you're I have nothing to do. And we walked along the beach for 6 hours. We had a true, brother connection. Mm-hmm. And this is basically where we became friends. And after that, we started hanging out, drinking coffee, and he lives around the corner, so he came to my birthday, just normal friends,
Sure.
And then he asked me at a certain moment, I did his training once, the fundamental course, the 1-day training, the basic course.
Yeah, the fundamentals, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then he said, why don't you want to become an instructor in my method? Because I would love to have a guy like you next to me. And I was it has been a while that I've been learning something, and it's always good to keep on learning, but if you think you definitely don't, basically.
Yeah, don't fool yourself.
And then I did the course, which is the peak of the course is the 1 week in Poland where we had a 5-hour walk.
Yeah.
In shorts with gloves and shoes on the mountain, minus 25, 5 hours. And you're actually okay with it, And after that, I started teaching the method, and you have to do that yourself, right? But there's many teachers in the Netherlands. I believe 1,000 in the world, about 300 in the Netherlands, and about 30 living in Amsterdam with less than 1 million people living here.
Wow, yeah.
And still, you can, fill up workshops, but not 30, 40, 50 people. So I thought it's really, and this is the power of intention, maybe. I really want to travel the world, paid. And that has been my job up to 3 months ago, and now it's opening again. So, in 2 weeks, I go to Sweden and go to Germany and on to the US and Brazil, and the UK is open again. I can fully travel again and, do my thing.
So along with that, the breathing techniques, you mentioned, and I hope I get this right, are you a venture capitalist, or what is it that you
do? My job has been, I've been an option trader, a market maker on the floor, these guys with colored jackets, yelling quotes.
Calling out stuff,
buy and sold, that. That is how I started after university. So I started economics. And then I went on to working for a Swiss algo trading company. So basically my expertise when it comes to the stock market is about options, which is kind of a difficult thing, most people find. And algorithmic trading. And it started 3 years ago, but a year ago I went live with my own investment fund, which is an algorithmic option trading strategy, which is very nice, for two reasons. One is if it's algorithmic, you don't have to think too much and the market is moving, what to do because the algorithm is telling you.
Okay.
So that gives a bit of calmness. And at the same time, the number two is that I get to practice what I preach. through breathing techniques, you can relieve stress. And, you know, like my life, apart from 5 kids, you know,
oh, really?
like,
yeah. I got 4, so not
oh,
quite
really?
there.
Yeah, man. So we can almost form a football team.
9 aside.
Well, with us, it's 11.
Oh, really? Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
But I get to practice what I preach, you know, like stay calm in stressful situations. And that is like, you know, you're never finished with life, you know, like there's always more. And at the same time, it's always good enough. But that daily, you know, it's not a lot of work, maybe 2 hours, but a daily connecting with the markets and staying calm, although you win money, it's euphoria. Oh, I'm so good, you know, like if I do this every day, I will be, you know.
And then
like
you trick yourself into thinking that's how it's always going to be or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when you get to, you know, when you lose money, you get to go into the fear mind state. I wish I had, why am I such a, you know, and both are not real. So to stay in the center is like, both are not real, or you are both your euphoria and your fear at the same time, but staying in the middle, you get to keep your distance, stay calm.
Does that help you to make better decisions, or why do you want to be in the middle?
Totally, because within you know, trading or the stock market, if you become emotional, you're going to make mistakes. If you're euphoric, you're going to take too much risk and lose money. If you're fearful, you don't dare doing anything, and you're never going to do a trade.
So that's neither place is good if you're going to be into options trading. Yeah.
And although, you know, to deny that you are in both, that you are not fearful or not euphoric, would be living in denial, because you are both.
So have you had experiences yourself? So you said you're practicing what you preach, and you're doing that now. When you were first on the floor and you weren't doing breathing techniques, have you had any bad experiences about being in that euphoric state and then also being in the fearful state?
It's amazing, like, that you asked this question. It's like you know this story already, but I think you don't. But
I don't know.
Yeah. When I was working as a market maker, you know, that hyperactive color jacket screaming, I was like the biggest trader of Amsterdam, or the biggest trader of Royal Dutch Shell, which was the biggest fund. So maybe not the biggest trader of Amsterdam, but one of the biggest traders.
Sure.
You know, this looking the same, you know, this hippie guy being the biggest trader of Amsterdam, the second market in the world. So I was getting too big for my boots, you know, overconfident, euphoric. And you know what is really interesting? If you live in euphoria, you easily flip over to that fearful state
very quickly.
Very quickly, like almost instantly, you know. And this is like being unstable in life, like manic depressive, you could say, you know, like manic, I can do it, blah, 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 blah. I'm getting like very active and hyper and overconfident. And then you flip over to, oh, this can't go on. And, you know, like, so basically what happened is I went from that euphoric state into the fearful state, and within 6 months I lost all my money. I got to really, you know, ground again, and that has been the start of my personal development, or, you know, like the spiritual journey, although, you know, I rather call it the intuitive journey, finding out what works for you, why you're here, you know, what to do. And this is where I started to do yoga and read books and, you know, started to develop myself.
But how did you pick yourself up out of that? I mean, you were down and out, right? So there must have been some part of you that was saying, hey, come on, you can deal with this. Why don't you try this? So there must have been a part of you that was really down and out, but then how did you pick yourself up out of that?
Yes, I was really very down. The thing that got me going was the fact that I had 3 kids. You know, like, and, you know, like when it gets really hard, if you're really rock bottom, then you get to see what is still important for you.
Okay.
And, you know, like a few positive things were still going on. I was healthy.
Sure.
Although I had been, like really seriously breaking down my body, I was still healthy,
Yeah.
like no ugly illnesses. My wife didn't leave me, although I lost all my money. I didn't go into debt. So like I lost like, it was like 600,000.
Yeah.
But it was like cut off at 10,000. So I got to take, like I had like 10,000 left. And my mother was saying like, listen, if you have trouble with the mortgage, I can help you. And, like I was basically what I learned, and this is like a true lesson, is there's always something left, even if you think that there's nothing left.
I love that.
And like what was left, 3 healthy kids, my wife, and a healthy body, and like not in depth, just lost everything that I had.
So what about a support? Yeah, what about a support network? I was reading a book by Ken Honda called Happy Money, and he talks about being content. And you mentioned this before. You said there's this place of having enough, but then also wanting more. And he mentioned that to have happy money, even if you've got very little, but if you've got a support network, like let's say you've got friends who said, I know that if I was totally down and out, I could go stay at a friend's house. So at least I got a roof over my head. And you mentioned maybe your mother saying, look, I can help you out if you need help. So do you think that it might have been that support network that kind of give you a little bit of security in a way?
Yeah. And something else happened, beforehand, I was really making good money. And when I went out with my friends, I always put in double the money. I was always paying for drinks. And after that, I said like, and I was pretty depressed. It took like 2 years to get over it, like it was not like, oh, I'm good. No, it took me 2 years. But then I was going out saying, guys, I have 20 euros. I'm drinking beer. You drink the vodka, I'm drinking beer. This is my money for tonight. I don't have more anymore.
But they were still your friends, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And they were like, like Tim, and I truly get the chills, like when I think about that. They're really my buddies from university. They're still my friends. They were saying like, Tim, you have been paying always. And, and although we feel so shit about what happened to you, we're so happy that we can finally pay all your drinks.
Awesome.
So, like I get to put in my 20 and they paid the rest. And I was still, like going out on Friday with my friends. So
that counts for a lot, eh? That's got to.
Yeah, so I have my own family. I have my mother, and my brother is always there for me too. And I have my group of friends. And you get to really realize that what is important in life. It starts with being content where you are. And if you get into that rat race of making money, like you get to lose yourself, like I did before fear. And then you get to be put with your feet on the ground again. And you see that you actually have an amazing life without that money. And this is where, getting back to, it's always good enough. There is always more. If you want to get more out of life in general, you got to be satisfied with what is here now.
I love that.
Breathe slowly. Yeah. Take it for what it is. If it's something beautiful, euphoria, or something crappy in your life, breathe slowly and move on from there. Accept the stuff, whether it's your crap or your success. Accept it, breathe slowly, move on. What do I want? And I promised myself then also, like after that, those 2 years, like if I will be making money again, I'm going to stay calm. And what happened 2 years later, I got into this algorithmic trading and I got to make money it was like a startup with very intelligent people. And I was like the trader in between the nerds, basically.
Sure.
I learned a lot about mathematics there. This is where I got to make money again, but I stayed calm.
Stay calm.
So, and then in hindsight, you really learn from your past, if you are aware and if you are able to see it.
It's good.
Well,
so it reminds me a bit of Al Helrod. He wrote the book called Miracle Morning. And in the book, he was talking about the 5-minute rule. So he said, if something shitty happens to you and you're just so down about it, he says, take 5 minutes to vent. Just let it all out. Scream and shout. Go mad. Just think the world's just dumped on you, whatever you want to do, just do it. And he says, after 5 minutes, you say to yourself, it's done. I can't do anything about it. It's something I don't need to worry about, and move on with your life. Because what can you do about it? Something's happened in the past. You can't change it, right? You got to tell yourself, I can't do anything about it. I'm moving on. And I love that part about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I was talking with my daughter yesterday. She's 19, and her boyfriend. We were sitting on the terrace, and we were talking about life. You know, like, they're so amazing, my kids, but that's another story. And we were talking about, you know, like, it's not in life that you will not be in pain. It will be, for sure. It's about how you handle it and how you accept that pain and express yourself too, you know, because that's what you're talking about. If you're not like, oh, I'm all spiritual now and something bad happens, I'm like, I'm okay.
No,
work.
No.
You gotta let it out.
Let it out. Yeah.
You know, like, can be through sports and can be through breathing, because through breathing, you don't go back to, oh, you know, that part in my life that was crappy. You just clean up your crap. And then, you know, like, something old can come to the surface. But it's not like, you know, like, old-fashioned psychology is like, okay, mister, you have a problem. We're going to go back to your parents and where your father died or whatever, where your parents divorced. And there we're going to relive it. And this is how you get your crap out. But that's like overvaluing the mind, like as if we know what is really holding us down. By breathing, you get to clean up your stuff, and whatever comes to the surface, you just accept it, you know? It's a form of expressing too.
Why do some people have emotional experiences when they do deep breathing exercises, and some people don't? What?
Well, either it's about the intensity, or what you're able to let go at this moment. But through breathing, you get to go deeply into your physiology, you could say. You know, like, shall I pick up a sheet about our nervous system and the autonomic nervous system?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Okay. Let's give me a sec. So maybe you can tell me in the meantime, like, what do you know about?
I'll give you my experience of breathing, right? So I started the Wim Hof breathing 2000 and hold on, it must have been December 2018, right? And when I initially started, so this is now for the listeners who are listening, and you might first time doing Wim Hof breathing. When I first started, I did get the dizzy feeling and the tingles in my fingers and my toes, and then holding my breath. 1 or 2 times I passed out, but I obviously didn't do it in water. I was just sitting in my my gym room, right? But as I've been doing it more and more, and I'm not sure about your experiences, Tim, but I find it increasingly difficult to get any kind of tingle anymore. But maybe it's because I've been doing the Wim Hof breathing quite often. But for some people, you might get that sensation. So don't be worried if you do feel a bit lightheaded or feeling tingling. But for some people, I've heard that certain emotions come out during the breathing exercises. Maybe not necessarily Wim Hof, but other types of breathing exercises. Even in meditation, sometimes things come to the surface. But I think it's good to deal with those emotions when they come to the surface, because they're obviously there for a reason. It's not there for no reason.
First of all, if you don't feel anything, it doesn't mean that nothing is happening.
Okay.
Can you make me co-host, by the way, at the same time?
Yeah, sure.
But that's one thing. The second is, you know, like, we store emotions in our body, you know, like, you can call it blockages, but, you know, it doesn't mean you're screwed up. Or let's say it differently. Maybe it means you're screwed up, but then everybody is screwed up.
Of course, yeah.
So it's okay to be screwed up. You know, we all have a past, and in a way, we're all that puppy when we were young that was kicked, you know, metaphorically spoken.
So, something bad's happened to you somewhere. Yeah. No one's had a perfect upbringing.
And, you know, it doesn't even matter if you've made that up or if it was real. You know, for our our emotional state, it's exactly the same, you know.
Mm.
So did you make me co-host, by the way?
Oh yeah, you want to share something? Sorry.
Yeah, I would like to share like because it's not per se about Wim Hof breathing, but more like the combination of breathing deeper and breath hold.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so you can share something on the screen there.
Yeah, here it is. So look, this is you can see this, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so this is the our nervous system is looking like. This is like basic physiology, and there's no rocket science here.
Yeah.
Now on the left side, you see that we have our central nervous system, which consists of our brain and our spinal cord. And from the brain and the spinal cord, all these nerves go to every cell of our body. Simply said, it's called the peripheral.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the peripheral nervous system, you can subdivide that into the somatic and the autonomic. And the somatic has to do with movement. I call that like the conscious nervous system. You know, I'm missing my mother, so I pick up my phone to call my mother. Hi, I miss you. Autonomic is like the unconscious. This is how I translate it, basically.
Yeah.
And the autonomic is like our inner world. You know, our blood pressure, our heartbeat, the opening and widening of our blood vessels, hormonal release, immune response, just name it. You know. Now, the breath is autonomic. We don't have to think about breathing. But, and this is why humans are actually a very intelligent form of species. You know, other mammals, unless you pull them underwater, like a dog, if you pull them underwater, he will hold his breath. But you cannot tell a dog, hold your breath. We can do that consciously. And this is so simple, but this is where the magic is. We can consciously change our breathing. And, you know, like roughly said, that is in 3 ways. We can breathe deeper and a bit faster, get more air in. That's one way. We can slow down our breathing and we can hold our breath. And then if you look at all the breathing technique existing in the world, it's a form of either, you know, it's only slow breathing, or like transformational breath, it's only fast breathing. And then Wim Hof method style breathing is like breathing deeper and then breath hold. And through these 3 simple tools, I mean, if we decide now to start slowing down our breathing, our heartbeat drops, adrenaline levels drop, you know, you start to feel more and think less. Like it is really very simple. We can consciously change our breathing and with that have a direct effect on the autonomic nervous system.
Are we putting ourselves in a parasympathetic state when we do Wim Hof breathing, or are we putting ourselves in a sympathetic state, like the fight or flight? Because aren't we increasing, well, we say we're slowing down the heart, but actually, are we slowing down the heart during Wim Hof breathing?
No, yeah, that's a very good question. So the Wim Hof breathing consists of breathing deeper, faster, and then breathing out and holding our breath. In that faster breathing, we activate the sympathetic or the fight or flight.
Okay.
Now, you know, like according to some breathing techniques, they are like panicking about the fight or flight. You know, it's very simple. Good stress is actually what we need. If you go running, what happens? Your heartbeat goes up, you get warm, you're activating the fight or flight.
Yeah.
Your heartbeat goes up. So the fact that, you know, is a high heartbeat bad? No, it's only bad if it's always high.
Yeah, sure.
And by having a running practice, speeding up your heartbeat and then calming down, you will have a lower heartbeat.
Perfect, yeah.
Now, the Wim Hof breathing consists of breathing deeper and then holding your breath. In that deeper breathing, we activate the sympathetic nervous system. Adrenaline levels shoot up, blood vessels contract, blood pressure goes up, we get warmer, and a lot more. Then when we breathe out and we hold our breath, we activate the parasympathetic and like fall into that rest and digest like meditative state.
Sure.
So it's like a interval running practice, running, walking, simply said, if you compare it to running. And what is the result? And this is what I always do when I give like a live workshop. I set benchmarks. Yeah, because we were talking about 3 things: breathing deeper, holding our breath, and slowing down your breathing. Now, what is the key to life, to happiness, to handling more stress, or to be able to calm down? Is that last thing, is to be able to slow down your breathing. Yeah, if we are in a panicky state, we get to, like breathe high in the chest.
Yeah.
If you're able in a panicky state, in whatever fearful, if you made it up, or if it's something real, you're able to slow down your breathing. You get to have a clear mind, know what to do, or see that your stress was made up by your own mind. Mm-hmm. So back to Wim Hof breathing, or any breathing technique with breathing deeper and breath hold, activating sympathetic, activating parasympathetic, and the result will be that you're able to slow down your breathing better. And like if you ask like a spiritual teacher, what is the key to happiness? And they get like into this long story about, well, my guru told me blah, 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 whatever. It's so simple. If you're able to have less stress, you get more happy, right? Mm-hmm. If you're able to slow down your breathing, you get to relieve stress. So the key to happiness is just 2 words: slow breathing. So and that Wim Hof,
yeah,
you go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about something called coherent breathing. So maybe it's a new buzzword, or I heard it on the Ben Greenfield's podcast, where it's a matter of being very conscious about the number of breaths you take in a minute. So it doesn't have to be something you do every day, but it's between 10 seconds for a cycle. So it's like breathing in for 5 seconds and breathing out for 5 seconds. So within that 60 seconds of a minute, you're doing about 6 breaths, so that you're really slowing down everything. You get into that parasympathetic state. Yeah. So I think, have you heard of that? Is that some kind of training that you'd be doing, or is it only the Wim Hof stuff?
What happens if you focus on no stress, you get to have more stress. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because within a Buteyko school, this is probably Buteyko, they're like, shut your mouth and breathe, nose in, nose out, and slow down as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Most people that have been, taught this kind of breathing, if they get to my breathing session, they completely panic, because we start with deep breathing. And they have learned, and here you go, into the mind, they have learned that activating the sympathetic is wrong. Stress, not good. It's ridiculous. It's like saying a running practice is not good because your heartbeat goes up. It's really very, this is what our minds want to do. Black and white. In reality, there is no black and white, there's only gray. So yes, I love, like we all make up this new, it sounds amazing, coherent breathing, because heart coherence, heart math, like totally fine. And I don't know what it is, but I would rather be breathing slowly, unconsciously, than consciously. Okay. And of course, to get to breathe slower unconsciously, you want to breathe consciously slower. And I think actually 6 times a minute is a lot.
You think so?
Like if I'm basically, when I've many times a day, like, where's my breath? How am I breathing? And often it's very slow. When I get irritated or stressed, like on the airport, and these, big people in front of me walking slow and 3 people on the side, I'm like, my head goes like, dude, why you want to walk next to each other if you walk so bloody slow? And I'm like, here I get irritated again. And then I go into 4 steps breathing in, 8 steps breathing out.
Yeah.
6 steps breathing in, 12 steps breathing out. So I play a lot with that.
Okay.
But to be saying, and that's like the tricky part, to be saying you always want to breathe slowly. Like, how would you do a CrossFit practice if you always want to breathe slowly? Mm-hmm. So it's more about becoming breath aware, and actually, like, have a running practice sometimes. Breathe deeper. If you do CrossFit, I'm like, I only do like my morning exercise, and I can do CrossFit. When I get invited, I can do that, and only because of my breath. In between, in the periods where you have like 10 seconds, I breathe like mouth in, mouth out, another, like yes, you want to breathe nose in, nose out by default. But if you really need air, breathe in, mouth out. You know, so the idea that always nose in, nose out, there's only gray.
Yeah.
So, you know, that coherent breathing, yes, that's where you want to go to. And you can use breathing techniques to get there, but never think you understand completely how it works and that you always have to breathe slowly, because that wouldn't work, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's
my little boy. I'm going to have to chase him out here. All right, Bo. Right. So I love that. Let's jump out of this screen here. Unless you got to show us something else about this one, Tim.
No, this is good.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, I love that, because I do agree with you totally that, you know, you got to, in order to be able to deal with stress better, you need to add a bit of stress. It's the same as if you want to build muscle. So you put your muscles under stress and then you rest them, of course. And that's the same with the breathing techniques. That's why people mustn't be afraid of breathing through the mouth if they need to, because that's one of the things I did struggle with as well. With, you know, with pranayama, maybe you're breathing through this nostril and then out that nostril, so you get the circular breath going. And then Buteyko is obviously all through the nose. And then I thought, is it okay to breathe through the mouth? And yeah, and I agree with you that it's okay to breathe through the mouth when you're doing something, like you say, consciously. You are doing this particularly for training. So I'm training for 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes of Wim Hof training, whatever it is, and you're doing it through the mouth. It's no problem, because it's not like you're doing that all the time, right? It's something that you're doing for a specific amount of time.
Exactly.
And what you're doing really is actually getting that CO2. Maybe we could talk about CO2, because what I've been doing recently is also doing static. Well, it's for free dive. I don't do free diving, but I'm just doing the training, which to me works alongside with Wim Hof quite nicely. I'll do it alternatively. So I'll do the Wim Hof one day, and then I might do CO2 static tables on the next day. And I'll do 8 cycles of just normal breathing. So it's not deep breathing. And then I'll just hold my breath with not like a medium intake of breath. So it's not all the way out, not all the way in. And then I'll hold that for like maybe a minute and 20 seconds. That's what I'm doing right now. Because I can hold Wim Hof breathing for about 3 minutes. That's my top level. So half of that, roughly, I do with the CO2 static tables, where I'm training my body to be able to be okay with higher levels of CO2. And CO2, I think people have almost demonized it in a way, because it's bad. It's a bad kind of gas. But actually, CO2 is what makes our muscles move. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's another thing. You know, like some breathing coaches will say CO2 is bad, and some will say CO2 is good. It's both true. You know, like, yes, it's true. If there's an overload of CO2, you have an acidic system. CO2, like the bubbles in Coca-Cola. Oops, advertisement for a sugar seller. Oh my God. That makes it acidic. But, you know, like, if the level of CO2 is too low in our muscle tissue, the oxygen cannot go in. This is called the Bohr effect. So if you're always breathing high, like breathing like 30 times a minute in the chest only, you know, using 20% of your lung capacity, your CO2 levels are too low. So it's not like, we don't have to fight about if CO2 is good or bad. It's both. You know, like, too much is not good. Too little is definitely not good. And yeah, so CO2 is, you know, like, absolutely. We live on oxygen, we think. We live on the combination of oxygen and CO2 in the right balance. And being able to alternate that. So it's funny you said it, because I think that's part of why I can have this lifestyle that I have. You know, like, with sometimes I sleep like only 2 hours and I'm okay. You know, like, it's because one of the things is that, you know, like, I feel like I have very much a sports body, because I can handle a high level of CO2. You know, so this is why without practice I can run half a marathon, or without practice I can do boot camp, or like CrossFit, which, you know, like, my belief system is every day a little bit and don't overdo it. But sometimes pushing yourself is okay. I call it testing myself, you know.
Yeah.
And then you get to high levels of CO2. And if your body's able to handle that, so that's an amazing practice. I'm actually going to do that too. You know, I always want to change that.
Mm.
Yeah, or alternate and play with breathing techniques.
Yeah, it is. I think it's good to try different breathing techniques just to change it up a little bit, you know. So I do the CO2 static tables. I do the Wim Hof. What's the other one I might be doing? Obviously, the circular breathing.
Yeah.
Buteyko, I've done it before, but not as much. Like, I'm just trying to be conscious about the number of breaths that I do. There's also another one that I mentioned on my podcast, which is not. It is a breathing technique, but it's more of a calm your nerves. So calm your circuits type breathing. And I mentioned this to Liz as well in the podcast. It's just about you breathe through your nose. John Assaraf from Inner Size came up with this. So it's probably nothing new to the world, but it's been around forever. It's just you breathe through your nose and then out through your mouth. But at the same time, you're saying to yourself, I breathe in calmness, I breathe out stress. So any technique that you can do that's saying, hey, just calm down. And this is probably works quite nicely with, let's say you're in that mode of doing a trade or something and you're trying to just keep in the middle. You don't want to be, swing this way or swing that way. You're just like, at the moment, I'm just going to calm my circuits so that I can make a rational decision. So if you're finding yourself really stressed at work, maybe you're in an airport, like you say, and there's a lot going on, just try 6 of those breaths. So you just breathe it in and you breathe it out. And that's something you can do on the go.
Always.
Whereas something with Wim Hof is you don't do it on the go necessarily. You do it at a specific time of the day. Normally I do it in the morning and it sets me up nicely. Which one thing I want to ask you about, Tim, is what I really enjoy about the Wim Hof breathing is that I do it, say, for about 3 rounds. And then when I'm finished, it puts me in such a nice, calm state that my breathing afterwards, I can find that I can breathe 3 times per minute or 4 times per minute.
1 time a minute.
Yeah. And it's amazing because then your heart, you're really getting your body into that healing mode, I think, where your body's like, I'm calm now. There's no fear in my life. I can now just rest here for 5 minutes or whatever it is and just heal. I mean, what do you experience after your Wim Hof training?
Yeah, exactly the same. And it's like going shortly back to that running practice. If you have a regular running practice, you have a lower heartbeat, like a more optimal body. Excuse me. That is the same for breathing techniques. So if you do your whatever Wim Hof method breathing practice in the morning, you are first more breath aware through the day. Second, you're able, especially in like 1 to 3 hours afterwards, because you've put more oxygen and optimized, like your whole system, your cardiovascular system is trained. Like we could do another session about, what is actually really happening in our body. Like dopamine is released. Like dopamine has the effect of thinking less, but having higher quality thoughts. You get to be put in that meditative state, and even like, because the effects of like 3 rounds of breathing would be 1 to 3 hours, roughly said. So even if in like 2 hours later, you can still feel that if you're aware of that. And it's like a running practice, like a light practice, 3-4 rounds of breathing gets you to be able to breathe slower through the day. And then, there's like one more thing that is really, if we have this imprinted in our mind, we will be able to relieve stress instantly, which is you got to know what happens with your breath if you get into stress. You're going to breathe fast and high.
Yeah.
And in extreme stress, like Hollywood movie, somebody is like that. And like Bruce Willis, the hero that stays calm, he says like, breathe.
Yeah, man.
Well, where does it start? It starts with the breath out. Like very simply said, every time I breathe in, I activate a little bit that sympathetic. Adrenaline goes up. So where do I calm down? By extending my breath out. And I've seen this 1,000 times plus. Putting people in an ice bath, getting like, it's like surviving stress. And then you say like, breathe out longer, and you know, like
It's almost like you can't get it all out. Like, trying to get it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then it starts with exhaling. This saved my life once underwater when I was scuba diving. I was totally hyperventilating, almost passing out.
Wow.
My daughter of, I believe she was 17, next to me, more than 30 meters depth. And I was like, I was imagining I spit out my regulator and breathe in water, sure death.
Cool.
And then I was like, dizziness, breathing, calm down. I have to calm down. And I was like, breathing, hi, you know, like continuously, like
hyperventilating almost. Eh?
I'm getting like almost emotional when I talk about it. And then I was like, breathe out longer. And you're really like, and then after 3, 4, 5 times extending the exhale, you can make that inhale slower and boom, you're good.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this is the moment in an ice bath where you are like, I'm okay. This is the moment underwater where I was like, check my gauge. Oops, you know, I got to go up. I'm on a 50 bar, like, you know, my air is low. So if you panic, for the people that are watching this, if you are stressed, extend that exhale. And like, for me, I call this 1-2 breathing. You know, breathe in for 4 counts, breathe out for 8 counts.
Okay, that's good.
And then extend it to 1-3 breathing. Breathe in for 4 counts.
Oh, wow.
Extend it to 12 and then play with that. And, you know, like it's really, you know, I don't always live healthy, like completely vegan, you know, like sometimes I don't sleep. Sometimes I go out with my friends to have a drink, you know, like I'm not a saint. But if you are able to control your breath, you're able to control your inner world, you're able to control your stress, and your life will get better. And either you don't get into the burnout, or you can put more on your plate. You know, if you're like a CEO or something, you want to do these breathing techniques.
Yeah, because you can handle more. Yeah.
Yeah, and through the day you practice that 1-2, 1-3 breathing or whatever. You have a moment, so you don't wait anymore. You know, you can use that with breathing techniques.
Yeah.
You have like a regular morning practice, like 3 rounds of Wim Hof method. That's like resetting yourself and making you breath aware and being able to control your breath. And through the whole day, you get to have benefits from that. You know,
that's perfect.
like,
yeah. Tim, before we go, I want to ask you one thing about cold exposure. So this morning, I did something a little bit crazy. I don't know if it's good or bad. I took a bucket of ice, right? So big old bucket of ice. And just based on my very shallow understanding of the vagus nerve, which is that nerve that runs from the back of your head all the way down to your central nervous system. And I put my head in the ice. So obviously I bent it right over, put my head in the ice. I kept it there for, must have been only 10 seconds. And then because I started getting a headache and I was like, oh, I'm freezing my brain. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Pull my head out. I was like, okay, maybe I should do a bit more research onto dunking my head into ice water. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think it's going to kill you, but you know, like the cold is a stressor. And when it comes to stress, we have healthy stress and it can go too far. So, you know, like, it's always guys on the Wim Hof Method Facebook group that are like, I'm doing 8 minutes, I'm doing 20 minutes, I'm doing 30 minutes. Like, I'm an instructor for, you know, like a very active instructor. I do 2 minutes, maybe 3. If I really feel good, you know, I do 5, but like 2 is okay. And you want to build up cold exposure gradually. So like, ending your shower cold, you live in England, cold water, that's already good of a cold exposure practice that doesn't cost money and doesn't cost you any time.
Yeah.
And the power of baby steps is very, very true here. You know, it works very good for me. Build it up slowly. Like, maybe in the beginning, you have a problem with it. After a few weeks, you're okay. I put my head under. I love it. I don't get a brain freeze. When I take an ice bath, I put my head under water afterwards. I can keep it under for 10 to 30 seconds. But the moment you get a brain freeze, you know you've gone too far. So you just want to always be conscious and take a step back and keep on practicing is more important than like pushing it.
Sure.
You know, like I've heard a story of a guy who could do in Brazil, could do 20 minutes of ice bath. He invites a friend, he pushes him to do 20 minutes of ice bath.
Mm.
That's just plain dangerous, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And this guy had like numb fingers for 4 months.
Mm.
Well, you know, like don't, you know, the ice, this is what Wim says. I don't know exactly, but the cold is righteous, but merciless. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Like God, you know, like you
Mm.
cannot you cannot be as ice, you know, like you cannot think of the future or the past when you're in an ice bath. You're truly in the moment. And that is like the mindset practice of cold training. It is beautiful, apart from all the physical benefits, right? Which is another story.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, you know, 10 seconds is truly okay. And you get a brain freeze, you know, and you listen to your body.
Mm-hmm.
If you would be pushing it, although you would have a brain freeze, still you wouldn't die. I don't know, you know, like I would just not go there.
Yeah.
I will not say like you will not die or you will, because
Yeah.
it depends on the person also. But you know, like it's very. I've never heard of a story of somebody dying because of taking an ice bath or putting your head in the cold water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yeah. So along with that, I did also just put my hands in for as long as I could. So just trying to get my extremities used to the cold. So yeah, my experience, what led me to Wim Hof actually was on YouTube. It said I was looking at like these things come up like never get sick a day in your life. I was like, oh, I don't want to get sick anymore. I'm not saying that. And now for the listeners, we're not saying that any kind of training is going to never or make it possible for you to never get sick. But anyway, that's just a side note. The reason I actually got into it with cold exposure is because when I was in my teenage years and my young 20s, I surfed a lot. I used to do a lot of surfing. And my friends would go out sometimes with shorts only, no wetsuit. And I was always struggling with the cold. And what I realized is that I thought it was a physical thing and it maybe was a physical thing at the time that I couldn't handle the cold. But as I've trained through Wim Hof and doing cold exposure, I can now jump in the North Sea here in England. Whereas 10 years ago, I would never even think. I looked at English people and I thought they're mad. Why would you jump in the North Sea and then in springtime or whatever? But now I almost relish it. I almost think, oh, I love to do that because it feels like the water's calling me, which is it's totally weird. I never thought I'd actually be saying that, but that's what's happened.
You know, like you grew up in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
English people, you know, like they get to school, they always wear shorts, short sleeve shirts, you know, like, so English people get to learn from very young age to withstand the cold.
Sure.
And that is something, the more you train with the cold, the easier it becomes. And I'm actually like you. I'm not, you know, like I don't have a lot of fat, so cold training was hell for me. And I'm also, you know, like I get to get better. Like I did last Saturday an ice bath for the first time in 3-4 months, because you know COVID, and you know I do an ice bath when I give a training. You know, I don't need to do that every week. You know, my shower's cold, that's good enough. And I was wearing an oximeter. Now the oxygen was not that you know, not a lot is happening during the ice bath. That was something I wanted to test. But my heartbeat, and before the ice bath, it was 60, and it was my first ice bath in for a month. You know, so it would be normal to get a bit like, oh shit. In the ice bath, through breathing, I get to lower my heartbeat to 50 instead of going up.
Amazing.
And then I thought, you know, like, that is really cool. Not that I'm so good, I don't want to say that, but that through that breath, even though I was like a little bit untrained, I get to slow down my heartbeat in an ice bath in a stressful moment. And this is, you know, like, this is years of baby steps training.
Sure.
And that's not about pushing it. So, you know, like, I've always been wondering about English people not wearing t-shirts in the middle of the winter, you know, like in Amsterdam running around.
Yeah,
So I'm the same, but now I get it, you know, it's just baby step training.
for sure. Tim, it's really been great talking to you. And this is one of my, I suppose Liz said that, you know, because I talk about breathing quite a lot. And so, you don't always realize that sometimes, you know a little bit more than what you think you know. And I know that we shouldn't think that we know everything. And I don't, of course I don't. But it's just that we need to help others where we can. So my point is this, that if you know something about something and you can help other people, then go ahead and help them, because I think there's a lot of people struggling with shallow breathing, struggling with emotions and stress. And so any kind of technique that is a breathing technique is good. And people think, well, I breathe all the time, what's the problem? But your breathing has become conditioned to be a breathing that might not be optimal for your health. So I want to just end off with this, Tim, to say, where can people get hold of you? What kind of training do you give? And how can they get in contact?
Well, you can go to my YouTube channel. I have like not only Wim Hof method breathing and a lot about the science, you know, like specifically on the cardiovascular or whatever, you know, and I'm not claiming to know everything like you. I'm just a nerd who's willing to find out and thinks out loud.
Sure.
So YouTube, if you want to practice, physical trainings, my website is a great way to start, or Instagram, or Facebook. I think Facebook, I have this page, Tim van der Vliet, Wim Hof method instructor. Well, either way, just go to my website. And you know, like what works best for me is this, just WhatsApp me. I'm not checking my email a lot.
Yeah.
And on my website, on the left corner, is my phone number. Send me a text, you know, like, because I'm also willing to travel. So either if you're living in London, hey, when are you coming to London? Or it will be on my website, you know, or if you Google, you'll probably get there.
Okay.
But if you want to know specifically, or you're like, man, I live in wherever, you know, like, don't you want to come over? You know, like I'm going to Essen, Germany in beginning of August. This guy is saying like, I'm doing the Wim Hof method instructor course. Can I come and assist you? And I'm like, where do you live? Essen, Germany, 3 hours by train. Why don't we go to you?
Sure.
You know, like, so that's possible too. So you can easily get a hold of me, and I do answer by messages and WhatsApp messages and Facebook messages. Cool. You know, like my private page is now around 5,000, so that's full. But if you go to Tim van der Vliet, Wim Hof instructor, I also put a lot of films that I put on YouTube on that page as well. And if you want to practice, I would say YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube, yeah. All right. What I'll do is in the show notes for the description of the show, I'll put your details in there, and people can find out where you are, how to get hold of you, and we'll take it from there. And Tim, it's been really great meeting you today and chatting about our our shared passions, which is breathing. Yeah. And I wish you all the best, and I hope that the travels open up and the world can get moving again, and we can all just get in and do some group training for Wim Hof breathing. It'll be
well, yeah. You know, like what we learned from this times is, you know, you cannot really trust authority. That's a bit too harsh. You know, like it's not like if you become sick, you take medicine. We got to take care of our own bodies, and that is exactly what we're talking about. And the training that I give, you know, to be able to stay healthy without medicine.
Sure.
We don't need it, you know, or maybe 10% of what we use now, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and that's why I love what I do, because it really changes people's lives. And, you know, I love what you do at the same time, because that's what you're doing at the same time. So
yeah, just helping people, educating people, and giving them hope for the future. Tim, it'll be great to talk to you again sometime again in the Life Shot podcast. But for today, signing out, this has been Clint Grove and Tim van der Vliet for the Life Shot podcast. Thanks for joining us.